In the 16th century, a Spanish nun dared to reform her own order, faced fierce opposition, endured illness, mystical rapture, and lived with one driving conviction: to draw close to God and lead others to Him. That woman was St. Teresa of Ávila, mystic, reformer, writer, doctor of the Church. Today on the Saint's Path, we journey through her life and discover what her path teaches us today. Before we begin, if you love saint stories, mystery, and spiritual insight, hit subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss future episodes. Now, let's walk the path of Teresa together. Teresa Sanchez de Cepeda y Ayumada was born on March 28, 1515, in Avila, Spain, or sometimes cited as nearby Gotarindura. Her parents, Alonso Cepeda and Beatriz de Ahumada, were devout Catholics. Teresa was the third of 9 children, and from a young age showed sensitivity to spiritual things. When she was 14, her mother died. That loss deeply affected her, drawing her closer to Mary and the spiritual life. As a teenager, Teresa, like many youth, enjoyed worldly things: beautiful clothes, conversation, books, social outings. But she also felt an interior tug toward God. At age 20 or 21, she secretly left home and entered the Carmelite convent of the Incarnation in Avila, despite her father's initial opposition. She professed her vows around 1536 to 1537, but the convent she entered was not a strict, austere place. It had many external distractions. The nuns sometimes visited, received guests, and the spiritual life was not rigorously enforced. Teresa would later see the need for deeper reform. Within her early years in the convent, Teresa suffered serious illness. She was bedridden, paralyzed for years in some reports, and during this time her prayer life deepened. Although frail in body, Teresa's spirit was being prepared. For nearly 15 years, Teresa felt stuck. She prayed, but felt no consolation. She oscillated between a worldly life and yearning for God. She describes this period in her autobiography, The Life, as a time of dryness, darkness, distractions. In 1555, Teresa experienced a kind of spiritual awakening. She received an interior illumination, a turning point in her life. From that moment, her focus shifted. She began to take prayer more seriously, to discern her spiritual gifts, and to embrace deeper union with God. She recognized that casual devotion would not satisfy the soul. Even then, Teresa endured more physical suffering, weakness, ailments, periods when she could not pray in the usual way. But she learned prayer is not only in feeling, but in the will, in perseverance. In her words, prayer is an act of love. Words are not needed. Even if sickness distracts from thoughts, all that is needed is the will to love. Over time, Teresa began to receive mystical graces, visions, interior locutions, what she called favors from God. She would later write about these in her works. Teresa became one of the great mystic writers of Christendom. Her spiritual insight was not abstract, but rooted in experience. Let's look at 2 of her central works and her understanding of the soul's journey. 1. The Way of Perfection. She wrote this work especially for her nuns, to guide them in mental prayer, how to meditate, how to ascend beyond superficial prayer, how to deal with distractions, humility, patience. In Way of Perfection, she teaches: start with vocal prayer, then gradually ascend to recollection, then to a deeper interior conversation with God. Distractions will come. One must persevere gently. 2. The Interior Castle or the Interior Mansions. Perhaps her best-known work. Interior Castle presents the soul as a castle with many mansions or chambers. The journey of the soul is to move inward, from outer mansions, lower prayer, to inner ones, toward mystical union with God. She describes 7 mansions. 1. Awakening/beginners. 2. Prayer of mediocrity/conversion. 3. Eviction of faults. 4. Prayer of quiet. 5. Union. 6. Spiritual betrothal, spiritual espousal. 7. Spiritual marriage/mystical union. She warns, however, one may be advanced but then fall backward. Humility is paramount. Teresa did not write all these in mystical isolation. She was tested, questioned, and sometimes had to explain her visions to church authorities to ensure orthodoxy. Nevertheless, Her writings became foundational texts for contemplative prayer. She also left Relations, account of her mystical experiences, exclamations of the soul to God, concepts of love, many letters, and poetry. In the 1950s, Teresa saw that many Carmelite houses had drifted from their original austerity. Wealth, external attachments, lax observance had crept in. In 1562, at age 47, Teresa opened a convent St. Joseph's in Ávila, the first of the Reformed Descalce or unshod Carmelites. She insisted on poverty, silence, enclosure, manual labor, austerity. Her reform was controversial. Many in the church and local authorities resisted. Some accused her of disobedience, of stirring trouble. She was denounced, threatened, and had legal proceedings initiated against her. But Teresa persevered. In 1567, the Carmelite Prior General came and approved her reform. She was tasked to establish additional convents. In the same year, in Medina del Campo, she met a young Carmelite priest, Juan de Yepes, later St. John Cross, whose ideas complemented her own reform for men. Over her life, Teresa founded about 16 new convents for women and 2 houses for men. Her movement came to be known as the Descalce Carmelites, wearing sandals to symbolize poverty, distinguishing them from the older, more mitigated Carmelite houses. The path was not smooth. In 1575, conflict with the decalced, older Carmelites escalated. Jurisdictional disputes, hostility, misrepresentation, and rumors followed. At one point, Teresa was ordered to retire to a convent in Castile and stop founding new houses. Meanwhile, John of the Cross was imprisoned in Toledo in 1577 by hostile parties. Finally, through the influence of King Philip II and other supporters, a resolution was reached. In 1580, Pope Gregory XIII issued a rescript recognizing the independent jurisdiction of the Descalce Carmelites. Teresa resumed her touring, founding, writing, reforming until the very end. Teresa's meeting with Juan de Yepes in 1567 was providential. Their spiritual affinities and mutual commitment to reform led to collaboration. One would become the major reformer for men's houses. But their path was not without severe trials. John of the Cross was imprisoned by monks opposed to reform in Toledo, 1577 to 1578. Teresa supported and intervened for him. Teresa's own reputation was attacked. Some called her a restless gadabout who traveled around preaching as though a professor. Rumors and misrepresentations followed. On one occasion, she had to enter a town secretly at night to avoid causing riots. But Teresa's courage, humility, and obedience carried her through. She refused to be silenced, though she always submitted to legitimate ecclesiastical authority when tested. Though physically exhausted and often ill, Teresa continued to travel widely, through heat, snow, on horseback, to visit her foundations, encourage sisters, and promote spiritual life. She understood that reform is rarely comfortable. It provokes opposition, misunderstanding, resistance. But she held fast that the desire to draw souls to God justified hardship. In her later years, Teresa's health was fragile, yet her mission pressed on. During one journey from Burgos to Ávila, she fell ill. Teresa died in 1582, either on October 4th or early October 15th, because Spain was changing from the Julian to the Gregorian calendar. Her last words reportedly were, "My Lord, it is time to move on." Well then, may your will be done. O my Lord and my spouse, the hour that I have longed for is come. It is time to meet one another. After her death, her writings and reputation grew. 40 years later, in 1622, Teresa was canonized by Pope Gregory XV. In 1970, Pope Paul VI named her a Doctor of the Church, the first woman to receive that honor. Her legacy is preserved in her works: The Life Autobiography, Way of Perfection, Interior Castle, Relations, Exclamations of the Soul to God, Letters, and Poetry. She is also the patron saint of headache sufferers, Spanish Catholic writers, and more. Today, her writings remain beloved and deeply read by contemplatives, seekers, clergy, and laypeople alike. Her insight into prayer and spiritual growth continues to resonate. What does Teresa of Avila's life offer to us in the 21st century? Here are some lessons. 1. Perseverance in prayer. Teresa teaches that prayer is a journey. There will be dryness, darkness, distractions. The key is faithfulness, not only feeling. 2. Humility and obedience. Even though she received mystical experiences, she never exalted herself above authority. She tested, discerned, submitted when necessary. 3. Reform begins with self. Before reforming institutions, she sought to purify her own soul, then built from there. 4. Balance of contemplation and action. Though Teresa was a mystic, she was also intensely practical, founding houses, visiting sisters, writing, traveling. 5. God works through weakness. Teresa's physical frailty did not stop her mission. In fact, she often said God's grace shines brighter in human weakness. 6. Spiritual friendship matters. Her collaboration with John of the Cross, her companions, her sisters. She leaned on relationships. If you're on a spiritual path, meditate on one of Teresa's mansions, an interior castle, and ask, which mansion am I in? What step does God invite me to next? Let me leave you with one of her powerful quotes. Let nothing disturb you. Let nothing frighten you. All things pass away. God never changes. Patience gains all things. Who is God lacks nothing. God alone suffices. Saint Teresa of Ávila. May her words echo in our hearts. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the life of Saint Teresa of Ávila. If you were inspired, comment below which aspect of her life speaks to you most, her perseverance, her mystical writings, her reform, or her humility. If you found this video helpful, please like and share it with someone who might benefit. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss more stories from the saints. As a closing, I invite you to a short moment of prayer. Lord, as we walk the path of Teresa, teach us to deepen our prayer, to persevere through darkness, to reform our own hearts, and to serve you faithfully. May her example guide us closer to you. Amen. Until next time, may God guide your path. Peace be with you, fellow pilgrim. This is the Saint's Path. Faith beyond time, miracles beyond reason.